Hello, I'm Ian Cornwell from Mott MacDonald. I'm going to discuss and demonstrate the new DATEX II mapping for JSON. Is that all right with you, Jason? DATEX II still has its mapping to XML schema, and that works and it has some advantages, but today's programmers often want to work with JSON and not XML. So we made a mapping from DATEX II UML models to JSON schemas a few years ago. It was never formally standardized, but it's been there in the schema wizard. People use it. But in recent years, a few of us working with DATEX II have been a bit disappointed by what the initial mapping could do. The inheritance and polymorphism in the DATEX II model, they're totally natural and desirable things for object-oriented programmers, and they have quite natural mappings in XML schema, but they created some problems for JSON schema. And then DATEX II also has a backwards compatible extension mechanism, and that makes mapping to schemas a bit harder. To get things to work in our first JSON mapping, we used a JSON schema feature that really weakens validation. You do validate your JSON, right? The last straw for the initial JSON mapping was when we looked at OpenAPI code generation, and we found that hardly any tool chains fully worked with the DATEX II JSON mapping. So we decided we had to change it. We have changed it. It handles inheritance and polymorphism differently to before, but it can still transfer all DATEX II data and now gives proper validation. And it works with OpenAPI code generators for Java, Python, and C#. We'd normally only do that kind of change in a major release of DATEX II, so that would have been with the forthcoming 4.0 release. But actually, we thought the current JSON mapping just isn't good enough today, and people will be using version 3 for years. So we made the changes now with releases 3.5 and 3.6. The mapping should be stable. We don't plan to change it, but because DATEX II is so important in Europe, we are taking this through CEN standardization, where it's possible, but unlikely, that some technical change would be made. In the rest of this video, I'm going to generate JSON schemas from two DATEX II models and have a look inside them. In a past video, I made this very simple backwards compatible extension model. The existing class source is extended to add an attribute for confidence. And I showed the JSON schema. So let's see how it looks with the new mapping. So I'm in the webtool.datex2.eu/wizard. I've loaded up my model and I've come to generate. I'm going to select JSON schema and I'll ask to generate. Okay, it's generated. I'll just scan, as always, scan for any warnings or errors. Okay, none, that's fine. So we can look at the results. And in particular, I'll home in on this confidence extension, which I showed in the last video. So for this extension schema, there's not much different. The version of JSON schema is updated, and additional properties, which was true, is now false for all of the schemas. That helps validation. It means it won't allow extra undefined stuff being added inside the JSON objects. Let's take another example. In another video, I made this simple model to show how you make a brand new publication and schemas. There's an access control publication class, which is a subclass of the existing payload publication, and it has a bunch of access control device objects which have attribute and allocation. And here's the result. Let's look at the schema for access control device. For individual properties like is blocking and point location, there's no change from the previous mapping. This extension attribute, which is there for the backwards compatible extension mechanism, has changed its name. Before it had a leading underscore, and we found that created problems in some code generation frameworks, so we had to change that. So it's now postfix G, and it also has a namespace prefix to avoid clashes in large models. And now we'll look at access control publication, and there's more change there because it's a subclass. Now, before you would have seen a reference from access control publication to the JSON schema for its parent, which is payload publication. But now instead, you see all of the payload publication properties included directly here. So that brings what I showed in past videos up to date with today's mapping. Now with your JSON schema content, you can use that in OpenAPI definitions, and you can do code generation for clients and servers, but that's a subject for other videos. Thanks for watching.